Hello there YouTube, this is the Rogue Gem Player and I'm coming at you with an Ice Barrier deck profile. This is for the November 25 format. Obviously it's lost a lot of power in terms of Toad and things like that, but the deck is still relatively the same. You can still play other things. If you want to play other supplementary engines, you can as well. But I feel like this deck is really good at just doing what it likes, and that's playing water synchros. And it's actually relatively budget as long as you can find things like the Mirror Mage and things like that. Because everything else has been pretty much reprinted over the years, so keep that in mind. So let's get right on into it. So we're going to start with 3 copies of Mirror Mage of the Ice Barrier. This is now the best card in the entire deck. You absolutely must resolve this card. If this card does not resolve, you pretty much lose the game. There's no brainer in all this. You have to resolve this card. Being able to summon tokens, which can level modulate itself, and you can summon basically any synchro for the most part, or you can synchro ladder into one that you want. Not to mention it does add an Ice Barrier card from deck or banish to your hand, so keep that in mind. That is also an additional card that you can do. So we then play 3 copies of Revealer of the Ice Barrier. This is probably the only real normal summon in the deck, and that's mainly because her ability to summon any of the tuners out of the deck, because we do play quite a few, because it's not level specific, keep in mind. So you can discard a card, summon Georgius, which is the level 6, and you can make level 10s that way. And that's pretty much the win condition, is summoning Lancia and kind of sitting on him. So, and also she can substitute a discard if you absolutely need to do so. We then play 3 copies of Georgius. For those of you that saw the recent Dragoonity announcements, this is one of the cards, one of the monsters that's on, I believe, the new Link monster that they have. So that's kind of good for lore-wise. But being level 6, it's actually really unique because as long as you have an Ice Barrier, you can summon this from hand, and then you can either special a level 5 or lower from hand, or you can bring back one from grave. So it's really cool. So keep that in mind. That's actually really good. Not to mention that if you do control another Ice Barrier, your opponent can't activate effects of monsters in the graveyard. So that also locks out certain decks for certain matchups. So that's kind of a niche thing, which I think is pretty cool. We then play 3 copies of Speaker of the Ice Barrier, or Speaker for the Ice Barrier. That's the proper way to say it. Another extender summons a token when by banishing it. So it does give you a free, kind of like double extender, because you're going to use this, summon, use this with a Revealer, make a synchro, and then you're going to immediately banish it to get an additional, add, or use it for the token, which gives you more advantage. So keep that in mind. We then play 2 Hexa, our only other tuner in the deck. It's level 1. The main reason it's in here is just it's a way to get Mirror Mage out of the deck into the graveyard. It level modulates, and then you can just bring it back. So you don't necessarily have to resolve Revealer necessarily, but it does help. And then we are playing 1 copy of General Raiho, which makes every time your opponent activates a monster effect, your opponent has to discard one, or when it resolves, or negate the effect. So that's a cool thing. And then we're playing 1 copy of General Wayne, which you can summon off of like Georgius and things like that, which does add a spell trap from deck to hand, which is pretty cool. Not to mention, spell traps on your opponents that go from the field to the graveyard are banished instead. That is a niche thing as well. We then play, we do play the Ice Jade stuff, which is 3 copies of the Ice Jade Rain Agreen. Discard a water, in this case, to summon itself and a token, which equals level 10, which is the main win condition, is to make the level 10 synchro Lancia, which is no-brainer. It's very easy. You don't even have to play the Ice Jade search card for it, because we have so much draw power in this deck now, in the form of Crocosaur. For the non-engine, we are playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, and then we are playing 3 copies of Nibiru, and 2 copies of Droll Lockbird. These are the only ones I have currently. Reminder, Mulch Army is coming out soon. More reprints for them. If you don't have them, you will get them. I mean, the decks that they're being printed in are decent, so those are good budget options if you want to pick those up. that's all for the monsters. For spells, we are playing 3 copies of the medallion. I like this art, even though it's more than just the medallion. It searches an ice barrier monster. That's all. That's all it says in the tin. It's a non once. It's not a once per turn effect. You can reuse it if you absolutely have to. It's kind of broken a little bit. And then we play 1 copy of the freezing chain. This is just a reborn that can occasionally help you, especially if you have enough monsters. You can just negate, make your monsters immune to special monsters from your opponent's extra deck. So that kind of does occasionally happen. So keep that in mind as well. We then play cards like Designator and 1 Call by the Grave, and along with a Foolish Burial. It's solely in here for the Mirror Mage. That's the only reason why we play this card, is to get Mirror Mage into the graveyard so we can make our plays. Because once we have access to Mirror Mage, we pretty much go off. It's off to the races, as some people would say. And then for traps, we're playing 3 copies of Ice Barrier. This is kind of just a niche thing. The idea is you're discarding it for things like Revealer and stuff like that, and you're using its second effect, which banishes itself to send a level 5 or higher water, and then add a water from graveyard to your hand. Because you're already locked into water monsters, it doesn't hurt you, and it does allow you to recur cards like Revealer, Georgius, and then send, or even Mirror Mage if you need to. It allows you to kind of get a monster that you absolutely need, or search any level 5 or higher. So that's nice to have. And then we are playing 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. If you have like things like Dominus Impulse, I believe that's the one, you can play those as well. I don't own any copies of those currently, but it is the holiday season around the corner. So now for the extra deck, where most of the options that most of the decision making is really made. If you have options, you can play more options. They're really, because of the waterlock, there's a very niche thing you have to do, and with the banning of Toad, you really gotta play other things, which is fine. It's nothing new. So we are playing 2 copies of Lancia, Ancestral Dragon of the Ice Mountain. This is your win condition. You are to resolve this card by any means necessary. The whole purpose of this is that twice per turn, you can summon free every time your opponent does basically anything in this case. Or special summons a monster specifically. You special summon a monster that's Ice Barrier from basically anywhere, except for banished, of course. But it does allow you to cheat out the synchros, which I think is pretty cool. And then if it does get outed, you can cheat out any Ice Barrier synchro entry. There's a synchro summon, which is very specific for Trishula, Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier, because this one needs to be synchro summoned when it's sent to the graveyard, and it's synchro summoned. It summons its lower counterpart, but also its effect only activates when banished. So keep that in mind as well. And then we play the 1 copy of the Trishula, which floats into that. So you basically go Lancia into this, or Raiho, which floats into other things. So it's really cool, especially if you're very smart with it. We do play 1 copy of Gungnir, 1 Duloran, and the 1 copy of Brio as the other Ice Barrier synchros. Yes, we do play all of them. Duloran allows you to bounce cards back, which I think is pretty cool, because you can reuse effects like the Ice Barrier continuous spell, which I think is pretty cool. And then you have Brio, because you can cheat it out. So, and not to mention that once you have Revealer in the graveyard, it's a free, you can just free bounce off of its effect, so which I think is pretty cool. And then Gungnir's generic removal happens to be level 7. We then play the generic water stuff. We're playing 1 Coral Dragon. You use this in part of a combo that goes into Crocosaur, which allows you to draw multiple cards. I believe the max you can draw is 4, which does happen. You can do it, but you're not necessarily going to do so. But it is something that you can play, because you're always going to have something to discard. Not to mention, going Coral Dragon into Crocosaur, you still get the draw, and then you can use Crocosaur to ditch things like Ice Barrier and stuff like that. So this is neat to have around, in case you do get outed in some way. And then the last 2, like we're playing level 8s. One copy of White Aura Whale and Emancipator Arisen Dragite. These are in here because they're good targets. White Aura just kind of on summon destroys all attack, but is basically lightning storms or lightning vortexes your opponent's board, and then it does piercing damage, and then if it's destroyed you can resurrect itself, so it's another one of those. And then Dragate's a negate as well. We then play the one copy of Sword Soul Changing, and then the one copy of Grimir Agreen, because they are water level 10 synchros you can summon. If you do not want to summon Lancey or you already have Lancey on board, it is an option you can make. So keep that in mind. And then we do play the one Coralline enemy. You have to play this because there is combos where you bring back the Mirror Mage off of this effect, and then you immediately tribute the Marincess anyway. It just gives you more options. And then we do play the one copy of Zealantis. This is mainly in here as kind of like a board nuke, because when you're under a water lock, okay, because you yourself are resummoning the monsters, if your opponent's monsters are not water, they stay banished when they all get banished, because this card banishes and resurrects them back, which is pretty important because you are the one that's summoning them back. So if you're under a lock, you just kind of leave them alone, and you kind of leave them where they're at, and you basically nuke your entire opponent's board in that process. So, but yeah, it's neato. I'm sure, you know, we're going to, as every time you get a water synchro, you kind of want to add that to the deck depending on if it's viable or not. There are things like the level 4 Crystron synchro tuner that you can play if you want to do that, but it's not really necessary because you're not trying to summon stuff on your opponent's turn unless you really need to, but it is an option for that as well. So let me know what you guys think. Comment, rate, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.